bad news for the Celtics. Kyrie Irving is out for the year. The Celtics said in a statement that Irving will have surgery on Saturday to remove 2 screws in his left knee. Irving's expected to make a full recovery, but not for 4 or 5 months, according to the team. Dominique, what impact will this have on the Celtics in the end?
Yeah, I mean, I think this year, obviously, it severely reduces their chances at making it to the finals, but they weren't going to win the championship this year anyway. I think this will probably be good for them in the long run because their future is predicated on the production or the development of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Those guys are phenomenal young wings, and that's the future of basketball, the way that they play. And I think Jason Tatum, despite the fact that he's not a guy that's being talked about as a Rookie of the Year guy, I think he may end up being the best player out of the draft, and I think this will help their development going forward. But it's really unfortunate for Kyrie. And from everything I've read, not that we can always trust the medical opinions coming out of Boston. I'm sure Isaiah Thomas would have something to say about that. But from what I've read about that, it seems that he's not going to have any long-term sustaining issues from this knee injury.
Dominique, I see what you're saying. Obviously, the Celtics were playing for next year. We've been saying that for a while. They weren't going to win this season. Everything that happened this season was gravy after Gordon Hayward. But to argue that Kyrie injuring the same knee twice, 2 surgeries in 3 years, could be good for them, to spin it that way, to argue that, oh, the additional playoff experience that the young wings will get, will be good in the long run, I just think that's short-sighted. This is very concerning. We can talk about the lack of structural injuries, but what do we really know about his knee at this point? I would be extremely worried if I was a Celtics fan because he is the future of the franchise. Without him, they have 0 ball handling. They need him, which is why, their playoffs are pretty much doomed.
I can only go off of what I've read from doctors that say that his only issue is with bacteria. You can get the bacteria out. Yeah. There's no structural issue. Like, maybe they're wrong. And again, I brought up the Isaiah Thomas situation from the past, but these are different doctors. I assume that they are saying the right things and they believe that there will be no long-term issue, if that is true. Now, granted, if this is going to be a recurring knee issue, then it's a real problem for them long-term. But I'm going to believe that they'll be able to kill this bacteria and Kyrie will be a better version of Kyrie in the future.
We also heard it was a minimally invasive surgery and he'd return in time for the playoffs. How'd that work out?
I think there's 2 ways, and I don't want to set a standard here today, set a habit, get into this too early, but I think Mina's right again.
Yes!
And, I think we have to take this approach 2 ways, short-term and long-term. Let's do this first. Short-term. What does this mean for the Celtics that Kyrie Irving is done for the year? It means, in my estimation, like you said, Mina, they're doomed. I would also suspect they're doomed in the first round. I think Brad Stevens has done an amazing job. I think he's coach of the year. I think it's a debate between he and Dwayne Casey. But to be honest, when you're managing, first of all, the loss of Gordon Hayward all season long, now Kyrie Irving out for a significant portion of time, and 2 young players become your stars in Tatum and Brown, what you're looking at is nothing short of the coach of the year, a guy who's managed to create an awesome defense, and that's carried them up to this point. That being said, I honestly don't care if it's the Bucks, if it's the Wizards, if it's the Heat. I don't think over 7 games this team has enough firepower to get past even an inconsistent team like the Bucks who have Giannis. I'm just not going to bet against a guy like Giannis over 7 games with this team right now. I think they're doomed in the short term. That means they don't get out of the first round.
I disagree with you there. So we'll have our first disagreement. It's, early in the show. But and that speaks less to Boston and what they have and more to the weakness in the East, Will. Because statistically, the Bucks, they have Giannis, but they are much worse than their record. I believe they have a negative point differential. The Wizards, we saw what they did last night. The Heat, do we really think any of those teams, have what it takes? Now, I understand Boston's offense without Kyrie is pretty dismal, although it's improved a lot over the last 2 weeks. But their defense without him actually improves. In fact, I think they're probably the best defensive team left in the playoffs. That, combined with Brad Stevens, one of the best 2 or 3 coaches in the NBA, I think it can get them out of the first round.